Now you're telling me that hard work is not the key to success. So what do you mean by that?
Hard work is an element of success, but is not the key to success. The same way that salt, pepper, and oregano are an element to a sandwich, but if that's all you had, that's probably not a good meal. So the reason that hard work is not the key to success is because we can just look around by deductive reasoning. You can see a lot of people that work really hard, Jason, but they don't have the success that they want. So it's, what are we working hard on? How are we using the information that we have to direct us towards the right type of hard work? And then it just comes to the same thing the news fills in: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So hard work does matter, but if it's not directed in the right way, you can still end up really tired, but also really frustrated despite all your efforts.
So why then are there, it seems like every guru on Instagram and YouTube today is talking about grinding and hustling and like, you got to work hard, you got to outwork everybody. So if you believe that hard work isn't the key to success, why are so many people talking about it?
Including me. I talk about it too. I'm the work on your game guy, so I can't tell people that work doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just a matter of, you got to ask another question before you get into the hard work part. So a lot of times people jump straight to the hard work, or that's the only part of the message that they get because it's understandable. It's easily, translated, is easily communicated to people. Well, work hard. All right, things aren't working for me. Let me work harder. I'm not getting the result I want. Let me just work harder. It's an easy thing for people to understand. It's easy to apply. As long as you're willing to do the work. The challenge is, if you don't know where to direct those resources, you're still not going to get the result that you want. So you need a little bit of thinking to go before you just start doing the effort. So the process to achieving in life is being, doing, and having. So hard work is the doing part. And a lot of people never focus on the being part. And this is why they can put in a lot of effort but not get the result they want.
We've got Dre Baldwin on the root of all success today. He's coming to us from Miami. This guy is 4 times done a TEDx talk. He's talked about discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. He's authored just a few books, 33 books. He's authored 33 different books, and he's done 8,000 videos to over 142,000 subscribers that have been viewed over 100 million times. He's the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game. He started out playing basketball in high school, was at the high school on the bench at the very end, and they ended up being able to figure out how to turn that into a 9-year professional basketball career where he played in 8 countries. And he's Dre's team reached out to me about being on the show, and I was like, holy crap, this dude's legit. Like, I should have been reaching out to him to have him on the show. So Dre, what's the first book that you wrote? What was it? What was that book about?
My first book was called Buy a Game. You can actually see it right on the left side of my head is that book right there. And that book is the only book of mine that's a narrative. That's me just telling my story. It was about basketball. When I first started playing up through my college years, and I wrote that book because at that time, my audience, Jason, was just all basketball players, and they just wanted to know who is this random guy who's on YouTube making videos every day, because this was before that was a normal thing to do. So I've always been a writer, so I saw the opportunity that you could write your own books, and you didn't have to go through a gatekeeper to do it at that point, and that's when I wrote that book. So that was my first book.
All right, so now out of 33 books that you've written, what's your favorite one that you wrote? Like, this is the one that keeps coming up more often than anything else.
No, the latest one.
It's always the last one. It's always the last book you wrote, right?
Of course. But I would say the one that comes up the most, well, I have a book that is literally called Work on Your Game. So I won't even use that one. That'd be cheating. I'll say my book, The Third Day. And The Third Day is a framework that I came up with. It's all about the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. That's the subtitle. And it's all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. And so that's really about instilling and systematizing and codifying discipline within your life. And whenever anyone asks me, don't know if you're going to ask this, so sorry for taking the question off the table, but what is the most important element or asset that you've used, Dre, to get from where you were to where you are? And the answer is absolutely discipline. So The Third Day is probably the most popular one, the one that people remember the most.
Do you think that there's a confusion that a lot of people have between hard work and discipline, and that's why so many people are pushing hard work as the key to success?
Yes, because hard work is very easy to understand. And people understand the concept of working. I mean, most people go to work, right? We get raised, we go to school, we go to finish school, we get a job, and we work for the rest of our lives. So most people understand that concept because it doesn't require, you don't need to read a book to understand the concept of hard work. Everybody gets it. And discipline, people get that too. The challenge is people don't know how to make discipline stick. They don't know how to really make it a consistent thing in their lives. People understand that they need it. I mean, if you went and stopped, I don't know if you ever see on social media, people now do these street interviews. They just stop random people and ask them questions and about whatever. If you asked 100 people on the street, is there any aspect of your life in which you need more discipline? Everybody would say yes. Right? Everybody needs more discipline at something. The challenge is most people don't know where that discipline comes from. And discipline actually comes from structure. When you have the right structure in place, discipline happens automatically. So when you play a team sport, for example, Jason, did you ever play sports?
I did, yeah.
Which ones?
I played baseball, I played tennis, and I played soccer.
All right, perfect. So I don't know too much about individual sports, but I know in team sports like baseball and soccer, there's a coach. And the coach gives you at the beginning of the season, what do they give you? They give you the structure. Here's how it works. Here's what time practice is. Here's what we do in the games. And when I say this, that means this. If the assistant coach tells you this, you do that. So they're giving you the structure. And because you're following the structure, discipline automatically happens as a byproduct. And the challenge for many individuals is that they don't have that coach around. They don't have that structure in place. Therefore, they're on their own. And if you don't put that discipline in place, then, you don't put that structure in place and the discipline doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, discipline, in order to be disciplined, there has to be structure around there. There's got to be something that you're trying to build. I mean, if an architect decided to build a house and didn't have the structure of what he was trying to build, just said, man, just put the bricks wherever you want. The wood goes wherever you want. I mean, that's a lack of discipline, lack of structure. You're going to have a pretty crappy house. It's not going to stand up very long. But same thing with our life and our business. So when you started out writing these books, how long ago did you write Buy a Game? How long ago was that?
That was 2009 going into 2010. So, okay, so 15 years.
A long time ago. So 15 years ago. So you wrote that book 15 years ago. What were you doing professionally at that time? What were you doing?
Well, a couple of things. Well, I was technically a professional basketball player, but I think I was unemployed at that moment, Jason. So, so I was an unemployed pro basketball player. So I was just waiting for the phone to ring. And that's because of that. That's why I started to, because of the fact that the phone wasn't ringing, that's when I started to build what became my personal brand. That's when I started putting more content online and blogging more often, which led to people reading my blog posts, which said, hey, we like your writing. And that's when I said, well, why not just write a book? You like the blog, you read a book. And that's what led to that. And then it led to me selling programs online and realizing like, hey, there's a whole opportunity here for an entire career just through the internet, making money just on the internet. And that sounds pretty quote unquote common sense right now. People listening to this in 2024 and beyond. But in 2009, this was not such a common thing and it wasn't so obvious. So it's because I was an unemployed ball player that I started to build what became my internet piece. Good thing is the phone did ring again and I kept playing pro ball till 2015. So I was kind of doing both for a few years, but that's where I was.
So today, professionally, do you consider yourself like author, coach, speaker? What is your profession today?
All of the above. If someone asked me what do I do for a living, I would just say I'm a business owner.
And so your business is helping other people. You're writing books, you're coaching, right. You're speaking. When you did where did you do your first TEDx talk?
The first one was down here in South Florida. So I did 2 in South Florida and then 2 outside of Florida. So the first one was in Broward, which is right north of Miami. So Fort Lauderdale, that's Broward County. So that first one was in Broward.
Okay. I did. So I've done a couple of TEDx talks, and I remember that first one for me. Man, I'm not a nervous guy. I've spoken so many times over the years. I was a pastor for a long time and was a school teacher. So like speaking was not a big deal. But I remember being a little nervous because I thought I had this in my brain that a TED Talk had to be, every word had to be memorized and delivered exactly right. And then when I did my second one, it was like, I'm not. This is all. I'm just going to get up there. And I didn't just get up and talk. I had a structure I was going to follow. I was disciplined, preparing to go back to what we're talking about. But the second one was a lot easier. Now, I've not done a third and a fourth. Did they get easier for you as you keep doing them?
It's funny that you say that because I did 4 of them. And my first one, I memorized it word for word.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me to do that. I just did it on my own volition because I figured, why don't I just do it that way? And that was the way that I figured I would get into the speaking business. I was just I would memorize all my speeches, but I didn't like that. It was, first of all, it's too much work. And secondly, I could do it a lot better if I was kind of just letting it flow, like you said, more extemporaneously, but still following a structure. Now, my second TED Talk, they wanted me to have it word for word. Like they said, come to the rehearsal and have this word for word. They didn't necessarily say you had to be like every word memorized, but you had to be able to give the whole talk and keep it that way through the next rehearsal and next one, and then performance day. And then the last two, there barely were any rehearsals. So you just showed up and you just gave the talk. So it's funny that the juxtaposition between all four of them.
Yeah, it is different how, you go to different TEDx organizers. They have very different ideas of who they want to talk, what they want to talk about, what subjects are permitted, what subjects are not permitted, how you got to, it's a cool thing. I love that. I love the idea of what TED is doing in the world. I think it's a shame some of the stuff that they're promoting and allowing, and then other things that they're censoring. To give you an example, I've got my second talk was on don't say divorce. It was very personal, but it was about something that happened with me where a video went viral, and I just talked about don't say divorce. I didn't give any specifics, my personal religious opinion or anything like that. But that video would not have been released had I not had a friend who was the TEDx organizer that went and said on my behalf, like, well, this is dumb. Why would you not release this? But then I watched some of this TED stuff. I see it online. I'm like, how did that get out there? So it seems like they've got some sort of an agenda, which I don't particularly agree with, but I'm glad that people like you are on stages and are doing that. As you think back to your professional basketball career and then transitioning 2015 into now what you're doing today, what did you like better? Do you like playing ball? Like, I think it seems from my seat as not a professional player that ball players want to play forever. But maybe that's not true. Do you wish you were still playing? Do you like what you're doing now more? What's the difference?
All right, so a couple different questions there. So what did I like best? Definitely playing sports. That's the easiest job you ever have. It's 100 times easier than what I do now. But the challenge is you can't play ball forever. So your other question, do I wish I was still playing? The answer is no, because physically I couldn't do the same things now that I was doing 10, 15 years ago. So, and at the same time, I understood that I knew from the very beginning that eventually this ends. Being a professional athlete has a very small window. It has a very short shelf life. So I was always looking to what am I going to do after sports is over? And I knew that at some point it was going to end, and I didn't want it to end in such a way that I didn't know the career was over, and I was the last one to find out, as they say sometimes. Sometimes as an athlete, you're the last one to find out your career is over. But I walked away from basketball when I still could have kept playing, but I saw an opportunity to jump on some business things, and that's what I started doing. So for me, I do not wish I was still playing. I walked away from the game cold turkey. When I played my last game, I said, that's it. And I haven't played a game since, not any kind of game, not even pickup, not at the local rec center. I don't do any of that. No, nothing. So I knew I wanted to walk away. I knew I wanted to do a next thing because, and going back to a question you asked earlier, Jason, I've always seen myself as a businessman. Basketball just happened to be the business I was in for 10 years. But I've always seen myself as a businessman, and basketball was a business for that period. Then we moved on to other businesses, courses, coaching, speaking, books, etc. So it's just been, what business am I going to be in? Not I'm a basketball guy and, I got to find a way to be in basketball. Because if that was the case, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation because I'd be a trainer or a coach somewhere.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. They're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside that says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go check out Relay. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay, and you could start one of the best in the world.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
So I find it hard to believe that you've not done any pickup games. Was that also a conscious decision? It's like, I'm never, ever touching a basketball again.
Well, I still touch the basketball. I'm just not playing in the game. So I got a son who's almost 2 years old. So he gets bigger and he has coordination. I'll teach him how to play. I'll go watch him play pickup, but I'm not playing. And the thing is, for me, and tell me that question again. It just slipped my mind what you were asking.
Well, I said I find it's hard to believe that you actually don't do this. Was that a conscious decision that you said, I'm not going to play?
Yes, it was a conscious decision because when I played, if I'm going to play, I want to be at my best, and I know what my best looks like. So I didn't want to be the guy who's 40 years old on the court playing against some guy who's 19 who I would have ate this guy's lunch when I was 19, but now he's beating me because I'm not in shape anymore and I only play on the weekends and he's in his prime. He's beating me and I'm like, I couldn't deal with that. I didn't want to do that. So I'm the type of person, if I'm going to play, I'm going to play for real, which means I'm going to be practicing twice a day. I'm going to be getting in game shape. And if I'm not playing professionally anymore, that's way too much of a time and resource investment for something that I'm not even doing professionally. So that's why I knew I needed to walk away and just not play at all, because who wants to be the old guy on the basketball court? Not me.
All right. So Work on Your Game Incorporated, your business. What's the core mission of Work on Your Game?
3 specific things that we took straight from the sports world: high level performance, consistency of that performance, and producing results.
And you work with who? Like, who are your clients that you're working with?
People that we're looking to work with are people who want to be at the top of their games. So we say we're looking for top 2% performers, because professional athletes are people who are in the top 2% or top 1% of what they do. So we have as far as industries, we have a very diverse range of people. So we have people who are in brick and mortar clothing businesses, people in finance space, people in the fitness space, people in of course, we have coaches and authors and speakers. We have people who have their own food truck businesses, believe it or not. So we have people in a wide range of spaces. But the basis of what we do is based on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. That is our 4-part framework. And that applies, again, mindset is the foundation of everything. Strategy is the game plan. What are we going to do? The system is how do we execute that game plan over and over again consistently? And the accountability is making sure that everything that is working continues to work as it's supposed to, both the people and the process.
Mindset, system, strategy, and accountability. Are those the 4? That's the 4. Did I get those right?
Yes, you got strategy and systems in different order, but yes, those are the 4 pieces.
Mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability.
Correct.
So I'm a big mindset guy myself. I read about mindset all the time. I've done a deep study of mindset over the last couple of years. I'm interested to know where that idea of mindset, the interest in that came for you. Was this purely from sports, or did you learn this more on the business side? And wherever you learned it, who are the people that are informing how you believe and teach about mindset?
Absolutely started on the sports side. So the sports, I've been playing sports my whole life, got into basketball a little late, but I was always into sports. And for me to even get my chance in basketball from the short bio that you read, I only played 1 year of high school ball and walked on to play in college, then had to hustle my way, sell my way into getting into the pros. And it wasn't so much that I was so focused on mindset at the time. I was just focused on playing ball. But when I started putting content on YouTube, and this is like between 2005 and 2010, the players who were watching me, of course, they appreciated that I was showing them, and this is just on the court stuff, how to do drills and dribble and shoot and dunk and all that. But they started asking questions about mindset because, first of all, when they found out about my background, like, wait a minute, you only played 1 year of high school, you walked on to play in college, you're playing professional basketball overseas now. These are things that a lot of players wanted to do. Or they were players who were being shunned and cut from the high school team, and they saw me and said, well, if he did it, maybe I can do it. So they wanted to know how I did it. What was the thought process? You walked on to play in college. What was the thought process? You played overseas. What was the thought process of getting in? Because you came from this small school that doesn't produce pro players. So it's not like I had this red carpet laid out for me to go pro. And that's when I started talking about mindset, because the players wanted to know. And when I started sharing it, not only did they appreciate it and say, Dre, this stuff is even more valuable than you teaching me how to do the Kobe Bryant move. The other thing was people who didn't play ball started seeing those videos, the mindset videos, and said, hey, Dre, I don't play ball, but this applies to me too.
So where did this whole mindset idea come from? Was it a coach? Did somebody teach you about how mindset powers your reality?
Nobody really taught me. I will have to give credit to my parents, because my mother's an educator. So she had my sister and I reading from a very young age. So we had a shelf of books at home. I've always been reading, and I came across, I think the first book, no, I can't even say that was the first one, but I read a lot of random books on mindset when I was a kid that I don't even remember. But the first book that I can remember actually going and getting and reading that really started to affect me was Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. And I read that around the time it came out. It was about 1999. I found that in the bookstore. I just saw the spine of the book. It said 48 Laws of Power. Let me read that. I looked at the back cover and it listed all 48 laws. And I said, I need this book. I bought it immediately. I probably read that book 50 times. And that started me. Then the other thing that happened is I got invited to what became a network marketing meeting. I didn't know what it was at the time. And they talked about personal development. So if you're going to build a business, you got to build yourself, which all made sense to me immediately when they said it. And they mentioned a guy named Napoleon Hill. He wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. And I read that book, and that's where I understood, the way he explained it, that there's a way to consciously and intentionally program your mind towards the goals that you want to reach. So I would give those two authors the most credit for laying the foundation, but anybody who's written about mindset, I've probably read them, watched them, heard of them.
Yeah, well, I've read both those books. The 48 Laws of Power, that's a huge book to kind of dig through. It takes a long time to get that. The fact that you've read it multiple times is a big deal, because that is a thick book.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's hard to get. I think I listened to it, and it took me 6 months to get through it because it was just so deep. There's so much history. I'd love to interview Robert Greene because I think he's a fascinating individual. And then Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I'm a Napoleon Hill certified coach. I'm a big fan of Napoleon Hill and all his writings. And I too agree that we can program our mind to achieve our goals. Are you familiar with the book Psycho-Cybernetics? Have you read that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Maxwell Maltz and Dan Kennedy, who's a marketing guy. I don't know if you heard of him.
Yep.
He did a version of Psycho-Cybernetics with I guess he got licensing rights, and he did the new version of it with him in it, I guess marketed towards business and success.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of Psycho-Cybernetics. There was a guy named Matt Fury that re-released it just recently, I guess within the last 5 or 6 years. And Matt's going to come on the show as a guest. I think he's the director of the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation now, or whatever. But also another great book. So, listeners, if you are into mindset, which Dre talks about, it's one of his 4 core things he talks about with Work on Your Game. Mindset being the first principle, is that these books we just mentioned, 48 Laws of Power, Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics, and there's others. Hey, are you just as an aside? Do you know Florence Shen? Have you read her books?
No.
Okay. You're going to love this because I stumbled across her. This was by accident on YouTube. But Florence Scovel Shen, she only wrote 5 books. And the first one was The Game of Life and How to Play It. So she didn't write 33 like you did, but she wrote The Game of Life and How to Play It. And then there's others. The Secret Door to Success is one of them. But she was a contemporary of Napoleon Hill. I don't know that they knew each other, but she wrote around the same time that he wrote in the early 20th century. I think her last book was published in the 40s. And so Think and Grow Rich was published in 37. So anyway, you as a mindset guy, Dre, you're going to love Florence Shen, and it's Shinn.
Yeah, I'm on Audible right now looking her up. So yeah, I'm going to get these.
She's good. You're going to love that. And listeners, go check her out. You can listen. I think every one of her books is on YouTube for free. If you listen to them, you don't have to.
Oh, they're out of print. Okay.
But all her books, I've got it on my shelf behind me. But all her books would fit into a book that thick. So they're all easy reads. They're really quick. So if you're a mindset guy now, so mindset's the number one thing, and you got strategy is the second one, systems as the third, and then accountability. You talked a little bit about accountability there. How do we practically put accountability into our lives as business leaders?
Well, one of the most important things a leader needs to understand is that you are not required to do everything on your own. And a lot of people make the mistake of trying to do everything by themselves. And this goes right back to that hard work fallacy that we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. The most successful people focus on what they're best at, so that they look like superheroes because they're only doing things that they're great at. And then everything else, they have other people or things doing those things in place of them, so that everything that you see them doing, they're only doing things that are maybe the 2 or 3 things that are their zones of genius, and they stay away from anywhere where they would be mediocre or worse. So when it comes to accountability, is the exact same thing. The thing with human beings is we all tend to do better work when we are being held accountable by something or someone outside of ourselves than when we have to do it to ourselves. Now, different humans can have different levels of self-accountability, of course, and you want to have a high level of self-accountability, but in order to even have somebody else hold you accountable, you have to have a certain level of accountability to yourself. Because I'm not going to go to the gym and hire a personal trainer if I never have the thought in my head, hey, I'm not going to get into the shape that I want to get into unless somebody else is directing me around this gym. So you had to have a certain amount of accountability with yourself in order to even allow yourself to be held accountable to someone else. So the short version of this answer is, number one, hold yourself accountable enough to know that you don't have to do everything on your own, and then allow someone else to hold you accountable, because they will move you to do things that you would never move yourself to do.
So as a coach, do you act as an accountability mechanism for the clients that you work with, or do you recommend there be other mechanisms?
No, I absolutely act as an accountability mechanism. That's one of the aspects of what we do.
So when you at work on your game, are like, how big is your team? Are you just, is this what you're doing? You got a support team that you're working directly with your clients? I'm interested because I'm impressed by you, just being completely honest. I remember when you reached out, you sent me a video, and we talked about being on the show, and to hear your story, I'm impressed. So as a coach, how are you doing this? Is it just you, or do you have a team of coaches? Tell me a little bit more about your system.
As far as the coaching deliverability, I'm doing that for now. In time, I do want to expand to where I have other coaches, and I have my whole system, codified. So I like to document everything. So we have a lot of stuff documented. So if I, die tomorrow, God forbid, somebody else could pick up this program and teach it. But as far as my team, I have an assistant who works with me. I think your team exchanged messages with my assistant. And then I have an audio team who handles a lot of the media content stuff we put out. So that's it. It's just 3 entities. So the media team they have their own team. And then my assistant is one person. I'm one person. And then we want to expand. So I want to have more people, but that's the team for now.
I love it, man. Well, us coaches are crazy people, man. The business of coaching is a difficult business, but it is so rewarding because we're living in the center of our passion, our joy, and our purpose. It's what we want to do. Tell me about a time, and I think this helps you connect with the listeners and connect with your audience too, because I know hopefully you'll be playing this on your YouTube channel too, because I know I'm going to drop it on mine. But if you look back to some of your biggest failures, and there were moments in time where it didn't go the way you wanted, and you pushed beyond that to be successful later. But can you share one of those stories with us to kind of let us see that you're not just Superman, like you actually do screw up and stub your toe from time to time too?
Sure. So, I would talk about the basketball background, but let's focus on business. On the business side, let's say from 2015 when I went full time to now. Well, first of all, when I was first starting, nobody knew who I was. So I was a nobody. And the reason I was able to go into business full time the way that I was is I had a background being an athlete, and I also was selling my stuff on the internet. So I was selling my programs to ball players. And at that time, I think I was selling some courses and I was selling books. And I was able to sell because I had good timing on my side, and I had a ready and willing audience because I've been creating content since before creating content was a thing. But when I tried to get into, let's say, the speaking business, I wasn't getting any return phone calls. Nobody was replying to my emails. And if I did get anything, it was people just saying, hey, you can come speak for free. So I spoke for free probably for about 2 years before I got my first paid speaking engagement. And even my first paid speaking engagement, Jason, was based on the fact that I went and did a free one where I paid everything, the travel, the hotel, everything. And then they said, well, we liked you, so we want you to come back and we'll pay you this time. So that's how I got started. That was my first 2.5 years as a full-time entrepreneur. And my main thing when I first started, I'm bringing up speaking because that was my main thing when I first started. I'm going to be a professional speaker once I found out that there was an industry for that. But that didn't pop off immediately. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you another one. Around 2020, around the time of COVID, I had decided that I was going to focus a lot on overseas basketball, teaching people how to play basketball overseas. Like I have books on it. I know the whole framework. I know what people need to do, where they need to go, etc. The problem was this market doesn't have there's not a lot of money flowing in this market, because who are you selling to? A bunch of unemployed athletes. All right, so they can't pay for anything. They don't have any money. They're trying to get a job. So that was not a good industry to be in. So I had to jump out of that one pretty quickly and pivot my business. That's when we really started to focus on the coaching that we do now in our university.
Yeah, I think we learn more from when we fail and things don't work out, as opposed to when things work. It's a lot more fun when they work, right? But I think we become stronger. You know, we don't become strong by lifting light things. And so when we go through heavy times in our lives and things we struggle, it's that mindset, like you talk about. It's a mindset that will carry us through. I feel like, Dre, over the last year, man, I've gone through my mindset final exam. all the crap that's been thrown at my way. It's like, oh, I had calls this morning dealing with this. Like, oh, is this ever going to go away? But it's like lifting weights. I know as athletes, you guys have to do that a lot. It's like pushing against the strong weight or the heavy weight makes you stronger. Let me ask you this question. So if you look back, I mean, you've been very successful. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
Speaking, coaching, writing all the books, the podcast, the doing the videos on YouTube. Before that was cool. What do you think is your one key to success? You said earlier, discipline was really big in your life, but is that the one thing that's unlocked success for you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you define success? What's that mean to you?
Success to me means, Earl Nightingale said in the Strangest Secret, pursuit of a worthy ideal. Meaning you know what you want to achieve and you are actively working on achieving it. That's what I consider to be success. Therefore, you can't define success for another person because you need to know their goal. Like, if you don't know another person's goal, then you can't help them become successful. You have to know where they're trying to go. So whenever I'm working with people, for example, as a coach or consultant, first thing I need to know is, what are you looking to accomplish and why do you believe that it's not working? Right? That's what I want to uncover, because until I know that, I can't offer another person advice.
The pursuit of a worthy goal. I love
it.
Earl Nightingale. You guys, if you're on YouTube watching this right now, first of all, finish this video, thumbs up it, subscribe, and leave a comment below. But then go look up Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, and listen to that. That is a classic in the mindset game that we've been talking about. So with that definition, Dre, if you define success as the pursuit of a worthy goal, do you consider yourself to be successful?
Yes, because I'm in pursuit. I mean, the fact that I'm here having this conversation with you means I'm on the path. I'm pursuing because I'm getting in front of an audience of people who otherwise probably never heard of me. So this is another step on that path. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here. Now, if you could put on your coach hat for a minute and talk to the audience and give some advice. What's your number one piece of advice for business owners, for entrepreneurs, for anybody trying to be successful? And you can't say discipline because we already talked about that. So you got to go to something else. You got to go to the well again. But what's your one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners?
Get clarity. This is the biggest thing that I run into with the people who I talk to and work with, because often I'm working with people who are already some level of successful. The way that the world would define success, usually that means your name is known, you're making a certain amount of money, you have certain adornments that people can see, and when they look at you and look at your resume, they're like, wow, this person has achieved a lot. Usually people conflate success and achievement, meaning basically the same thing. So most of the people who we work with, I told you, top 2% people, they're already doing pretty good. It's not like these people are failing. So the biggest challenge that they have is a lack of clarity. What do I do next? Why do I do it? When do I do it? Where do I do it? Who's going to do it? And how does it get done? So the clarity part is what causes a lot of confusion in people. And we all know that when people are confused, they tend to do nothing. They don't ask questions. They just don't do anything. And they just stagnate in the place that they're in. They just do what they normally do by default, which is the same stuff that got them to being stuck in the first place. So once people get over that hump and realize they need to do something different, they come talk to someone like me. I help them get clarity. So my number one tool that I use, discipline is for myself, but number one tool that I use when I'm working with other people is insight. And insight is not information. It's not my job to spout information to people because Google and ChatGPT had me beat at that game. My job is to help people make sense of the information that they have and understand when to use it, where to use it, why to use it, and which information to use. Because a metaphor I like to give people, Jason, is that school is a closed book test. Like when you go to school, you got to close your textbook and take the test. If you look at the book, you're cheating and they kick you out of class, right? But in life, It's an open book test. You can open any book you want to solve any challenge you have in life. The challenge, though, is which book do you open and which page do you turn to? There are millions of books out there. The challenge that many people have is not a lack of information, is a lack of insight. And I help people get insight. I help people with insight to get clarity so they can take action.
So listeners who are resonating with what you're talking about right now, who do you work with? So tell us, the listeners who's like, I like this guy, I like this Dre Baldwin guy. Who do you work with?
So we're looking for high-level people, either who are already high-level performers who want to go higher. So these are the ambitious, and people who might not be at that highest level quite yet, but you want to get there. So we work with people who come out of the government. They're transitioning from working for the government or being in the military into entrepreneurship. Athletes, of course, transitioning into entrepreneurs, people coming out of corporate who want to start a business, people who already have a business, small business owners who want to build their business, people who may work in a corporate structure, let's say, for example, a finance company, but they get to run their own office. So they basically run it as if they're an entrepreneur, but they still are in the corporate structure. They come to someone like me to help them maybe not with the finance part, because that's not my background, but with their people skills or the stuff that they need to do out of the office because their life is crumbling because they're doing so much work in the office life. So as I told you before, we have worked with a wide range of people from a lot of different industries for a lot of different reasons, because my number one skill is insight. My number one skill is not a specific industry, unless you want to write a book or be a coach or be a basketball player. But even if you're not one of those things, I can still help you, because my job is to look at your situation and help you ask the right questions, not provide you all the answers.
That's good. That's a sign of a good coach. You've obviously had good coaching in your life, or you wouldn't know how to do that. That's great, man. Well, as we finish up our conversation, I want to encourage everybody to go check out workonyourgame.com, workonyourgame.com. And Dre's all over social media, his Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. I'm sure if you just, go look up Dre Baldwin, that's D-R-E, Baldwin, B-A-L-D-W-I-N. You can check him out. So Dre, I want to give you kind of the last word as we get ready to sign off for today. Anything you want to share with our audience before I say all the things I need to say to close the show out?
Sure. Well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing your platform and giving me the opportunity here, Jason. And what I would tell everybody is that everybody has a game, whether you're a librarian, an athlete, a podcaster, a student, a YouTuber, or you're just trying to figure it out. You don't even know what you are right now. We all have a game, and your job is to figure out what game you're in. Then you work on your game so you could develop your skills. Then your next job is create an opportunity for yourself. Once you create the opportunity, now you have to go out there and perform, because we are in a performance-based business. Other thing we're in is a results-based business. That's what you'll be judged on, your performance and the results of that performance. When you produce results, you get rewards. And when you get rewards, now what you want to do is codify that process that you just followed and do it over and over and over again so you can keep getting the rewards that you want. That is what Work on Your Game is all about.
It's workonyourgame.com. I've got Dre Baldwin with me here on the show. Dre, it's been an honor having this conversation with you today. Thank you for being here. And I think that maybe you and I should do some stuff together. So thank you for being on the show, man.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I appreciate you sharing your platform, Jason. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to hearing your audience's feedback to this conversation.
Well, there you have it. Another great, successful guy sharing his insights into how to become successful himself. And don't miss what he said. Discipline, clarity. Those are two things that I think shine a light on his conversation that we had today, is that if we're going to be successful in life, we got to have that discipline, and we also need clarity. And that's why business coaches are so important. Life coaches are so important. People like Dre, people like me. There are other people out there that can help you find clarity and help you hold you accountable. Like we talked about mindset and accountability. You've got to have the right mindset. And part of that is being accountable, and having a business coach, a life coach in your life. That's the way you need to do it. So thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for subscribing, leaving a review. Please go check out Dre at workonyourgame.com. Thank you to the sponsor of our show today. We love our sponsors that will help us bring this to you. Thank you for listening. I am the Real Jason Duncan, and as always, Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the Real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.